Arian, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Our listeners want to get to know you. What are some of the many hats you wear at work and at home?
Well, let me take the work one first. So at work, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called IgnitePost, and essentially what we do is we help marketing teams boost their conversion rates by about 15x, and we do this by using robotics and software to enable them to send real pen and ink, robotically handwritten notes at massive scale. Uh, so being an early stage company, the various hats I wear really run the gamut. So I do everything from our initial sales outreach and marketing to connecting with customers and making sure that customers are happy to kind of overseeing the development of our product. Um, and of course, running the team as well to make sure that everybody, knows what's going on, that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. So, as with any early stage company, you kind of do a little bit of everything and wear a lot of different hats.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's kind of my professional work life, and then uh, at home. So I actually am recently engaged. So I live with my fiance here in Boston, Massachusetts, and depending on I guess what time of the year it is, what season it is, you can find me doing a lot of different things. So uh, various hobbies where you can find me include skiing, sailing. I'm a pilot, so I'm a private pilot and fly around for fun. So it really kind of depends on what time of the year you find me and what mood I'm in and what mode I'm in too.
Wow. And you're not too far away. I'm in Charlton, Mass, Central
Oh
Mass,
yeah.
near Sturbridge.
Oh yeah. Not too far away at all.
Yeah. I recently interviewed a guy from Canada, and he was a big Montreal Canadiens fan. So we were having a little trouble there, being a Bruins fan, and he was but we
Yep.
worked through it.
That's good. That's always good to hear.
um, Okay. Now, I'd love to hear more about your company, Ignite Post, because I'm really interested in, I love this authenticity and the sensory part of handwritten notes. And I'm a lifelong journaler, and I
Nice.
always prefer writing by hand. I don't know if it's that sensory stimuli or a connection with your brain in your creativity. What is it about that handwriting that's so important, so authentic?
Yeah, so you absolutely nailed it. And it's fun because the science and psychology behind handwriting and handwritten notes is really one of the most fascinating things for me. But it's something that I almost never hear like really spoken about or kind of people dive into. So in general, if you look at what's happening in our society, we're really shifting to what we like to call a relationship-centric era, where a decade ago, everything was what I would probably call more customer-centric. And you know, the old marketing adage, somebody needs to see your service or product 10 times before they realize it and actually take action. So what
Hmm.
happened is brands started creating all these like really like various touch points just to be in front of you as much as possible, and it's really oversaturated us, right? So we're at the point where every email user receives on average about 120 emails a day. We're subject to about 5,000 digital ads. We're just like very oversaturated, um, especially when things get pushed to us on every device that we own. So with Ignite Post, the whole idea was to bring back, like you said, that authenticity and to kind of reconnect with being human a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but we knew that brands would still need a way to do this at scale. And so, me with my engineering background, I kind of did what I always do and kind of said, how can I use my engineering background, but also provide a little bit of authenticity and relationship building to these brands at scale. And so that's kind of the genesis behind Ignite Post. But to your point, it's interesting because all of this digital media has been something that has been great, right? Because it's very easy to get in front of people very inexpensively. But if you look at who we are as human beings have evolved over millennia to learn about their environments by actually touching and interacting with it. It's kind of ingrained in our DNA of how we've evolved to where we are. So when you're talking about digital media, it kind of loses that aspect, which is one of the most crucial and important things that we have as living, breathing organisms. Is I understand about my environment by actually like touching it and interacting with it physically. So to your point, yeah, there's a huge connection between touching something and writing something and having it actually go into your brain and for you to be able to recall it and remember it. Uh, and what's fascinating is that they've actually done a lot of studies. I think there was a study by the journal Vision that came out a couple of years ago where they actually basically put one group of people in one bucket and kind of showed them a lot of ads just visually. And then in bucket B, they had a lot of people look at these same ads, but they actually gave them physical things where they can actually, pick up the advertisements and kind of interact with them and hold them and touch them. And they found that that second group that was able to interact with it could recall things better. They understood it more, so they comprehended what was the message that was being sent more, and they could recall things for longer into the future. And so that kind of solidified in my mind that this is something that's super important to bring back, come back to being human a little bit, and embrace kind of who we are as we have evolved.
So did you create the robotics to do the handwriting?
No, so we're a software company, so we do all the software, and then we work with a company down south that does all of the robotics. So they do
Hmm.
the hardware components.
Okay. And I saw on your website, ignitepost.com, that you had a lot of different samples of handwriting. So what goes into doing the different versions of handwriting?
Yeah, so number one, if listeners want to try it out, definitely hit our website ignitepost.com, and you can actually send yourself a free robotically handwritten sample. So I think that would be fun. Um, so number one, there's a bunch of different default handwriting styles that you can use. So if you don't want to use your own handwriting, that's totally fine. In fact, I'd say almost everybody chooses not to, just because this day and age, number one, a lot of people don't have great handwriting, and so they actually they actually want us to provide better looking handwriting.
Hmm.
But then number two, because we have shifted to being a more digital based society, a lot of people don't know what someone else's handwriting is, right? So if I sent you a handwritten note right now, you would assume that that's my handwriting, but you don't actually know. And so that's becoming a more and more prevalent use case. So to answer your question, yeah, if somebody wants to send a handwritten note, you actually don't have to give us a handwriting sample or anything. You could use and just choose from a list of handwriting styles that we have that range from anywhere from extremely neat to very sloppy, kind of more what I write like. If somebody does want to use their own handwriting, we can definitely do that. Essentially what we do is we have you give us a handwriting sample, which is you write out all of the characters, all of the symbols, all of the letters and everything. And then we actually have you write some phrases and paragraphs out as well. Because what we do is we take the cadence of how you write and actually introduce what we call penmanship variation into the actual handwriting. So when you actually
Hmm.
look at a note, it doesn't look like a font, right? Not all the A's are the same, not all the T's are the same. And then the paragraphs and sentences that we have you write include common letter combinations so that when you are writing, as you kind of get into a flow. And when you're actually writing sentences and writing paragraphs down, you kind of have your own style with the commonly used letter combinations. And so we take that and introduce that as well so that somebody looking at one of our robotically handwritten notes isn't looking at something that looks like a font. They're looking at something that looks like a very naturally written note.
Hmm. Maybe I'll go on there and get myself a love note sent to me.
Yeah, you definitely should. Absolutely.
Have you found, are there trends to, like, say a more creative person or like Einstein's handwriting? Can you see, like if this is a left brain person or a right brain person by their
That's
handwriting?
that's interesting. I don't actually know. I haven't delved into it deep enough, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there are ways to figure out. But no, I haven't figured them out yet.
Now let's switch gears to productivity. Which apps, software, and technology do you rely on most for your personal productivity and the productivity of your team?
Yeah. So for me, it's actually a combination of a couple things. So on the software side, I really kind of live and breathe in Asana. That's kind of my task management system, and I use that to do both short term and long term planning. So that's kind of where I have like kind of laundry list of everything I want to do. It's my brain dump area. And then I have a kind of a shorter project list of things that I want to get through on a shorter term basis. So like a weekly or monthly basis. But to be honest, the most effective productivity tool that I use personally is literally just a Post-it note. Again, maybe it goes back to the whole handwriting thing, but I use it on a daily basis. And what I've found is that I have a habit of thinking that I can be way more productive than I actually can be,
Mhm.
and think that I can get through more things than I can in reality. So what I started doing probably about 2 years ago is basically taking a Post-it every day, and I write down 3 things, no more, like the most important things that I need to accomplish that day, and then I just maniacally focus on them until they're done.
Mm.
That honestly has been probably the number one most productive thing that like behavior change that I've made, that I can actually point to and actually see results from. Those things typically come from like a task management system or something. So like I typically take those tasks from Asana, but I do a little bit of categorization every morning to put them down onto that Post-it note. So that's me personally. And then on the wider array, our entire team here also uses Asana, and I'm a big believer of, we don't do we have a 6-person team here, so I don't do any like status reports or anything like that. I'm a big believer that, the tools that you use should give you enough information to let you understand who is working on what and where they are in that process. And so we've used Asana and kind of the way in which we use it has everybody like really assigning themselves tasks and putting them on almost like a Kanban style board, so that we know at any given moment who is working on what, where they are, and approximately how long it's going to take them to get through it. So this gives us kind of more general, visibility. So I kind of break that down into, here's what Arian uses to be productive and what makes me most productive. And then here's a way that we can, on an organizational level, see who's working on what, which, right now, primarily it's for my advantage, but as we grow and scale and build the business, it's going to become increasingly important for everybody to kind of have that larger view of who's working on what and what they're doing, just so that everybody can, information dissemination.
What's your secret to staying highly creative, and how do you foster creativity within your company?
Yeah, so I think honestly, creativity comes from being able to turn the mind off and take a break. So earlier in my career, I was way too much of a workaholic. I was, really, 9 to 5, definitely working, and then outside of working hours, I was absolutely kind of burning the candle at both ends. And what I found is, although I was able to make a lot of progress, I kind of hit a wall to the point where, like to your point, I don't think I was approaching things in a way that was maybe the ways they were best suited,
Mm.
because I was more of, work harder, not smarter. So for me, it's about finding that time to let your mind re-expand and kind of give it that rest that it needs. So even though, we're an early stage company and everybody, is expected to wear a lot of hats and to work really hard, we make sure that number one, it's built into our core values to celebrate the small things. So small accomplishments, no matter how big or how small, we make sure we set aside time to celebrate. Um, and then kind of going back to my first point, we do work hard, but we are very cautious not to burn people out and not to burn ourselves out. And so, we do have kind of set working hours that we really try to hold. And then outside of those hours, we really try to respect those boundaries and just let people rest and recharge. So from an organization standpoint, we've kind of tried to build that into our culture of like, let's celebrate the things that need to be celebrated, and let's also make sure that we're not burning ourselves out.
That's great. I recently interviewed someone on the podcast, or had them on as a guest, who talked a lot about core values. So you mentioned your core values for your company. What are some of your other core values for Ignite Post?
Yeah. So celebrate the small things. That's definitely a big one. Um, do the right thing. That's a big core value for us. So again, this kind of stems from just wanting everybody to kind of think of the bigger picture, not just of, okay, I'm hired to do a certain job. This is what I need to do. So doing the right thing. And then one of the other big ones that we always try to instill in everybody is to just be kind to one another and be kind to everybody. So that goes not just for the people here in the business, but to our customers, potential partners. You know, we really feel like if we are kind to ourselves, kind to each other, it'll kind of permeate out, and everybody wants to, you know, at the end of the day, people buy things from other people. And so if we adhere to these core values, we'll be able to show people that we are the type of folks that it's a pleasure to work with. You know, it's kind, we celebrate the little things, even things that customers may not think are worthy of celebration. And just that feeling of kindness and happiness kind of permeates everywhere. So those are our like three main like values that we really try to adhere to.
Great. How do you consume the news each day, and what do you like to read?
Yeah, so this is actually, that's an interesting question because I try to stay out of the news as much as possible.
Hmm.
So my approach to it is I do a daily brief every morning. So I have like a coffee every morning, and I actually do the New York Times daily brief, which is kind of a very quick uh, summarization that they send out every morning of kind of the top stories.
Oh,
And
it's an
so
email?
it's an email, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, email, newsletter. So I do kind of a quick scan through there, and then really I really stay out of the news for the rest of the day. If
Hmm.
there's something that's like very interesting and like really grabs my attention, I'll dive into it. But other than that, I try to stay away from the news, mostly because I found that if anything is super important or like comes up that I should really know about, I typically, it's very easy to find out about it, especially with like social media and everything. So I try to stay out of just that mode where I'm just trying to like search out and consume news. Um, and then on the flip side, you know, I try to educate myself by, you know, reading materials that I think one would help me grow as a person, two that would help me grow as a CEO, and then three that would be important for just a business in our industry and the kind of, you know, marketing sales industry. So I do a lot of things like read business oriented books every morning driving to work. I typically listen to a either podcast or a an audiobook, and probably more in the audiobook category than the podcast category. So that's kind of how I inform myself and kind of keep myself up to date, I guess.
Can you recommend any big books that you've read that have really made an impact?
Yeah, so the most recent book that I am just finishing up right now is Impossible to from actually it's Predictable Revenue, and then I read the follow-up book to that, which is uh, Impossible to Inevitable. So I like that kind of combination of books, especially for folks who are in kind of the sales industry. Uh, the other awesome book that I always recommend that really had an impact on me prior to starting my first business was The E-Myth by Mike Gerber, which is just basically like a systematic way of how to think about starting and running a business, but it kind of gets down to a little bit more brass tacks. I feel like a lot of business books stay up at, you know, 30,000 feet, and I felt like that book was something that really gave you some tangible, like here's where the rubber meets the road of how to actually, you know, implement and do things.
I'm thinking about him with his big hat and his suit, or he seems like quite a character,
Oh yeah,
Michael
for
Gerber.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And if you get the audiobook, I believe he also narrates it himself. So he's a good storyteller too.
Yes, I remember that, of him talking about even, customer service and the quality of a company where he's sitting there by the fire at this hotel and they give him, a nice cup of tea and he's just enjoying all
Exactly.
these little things. So,
Yes, yes.
so did you apply a lot of that eMyth um, technology to your company or ideas?
I did, yeah, because the general thought of that is, you know, when you are building a business, you want to build a business that can kind of run itself. That's kind of the main theme that runs throughout the book. But you only know how to do that by actually doing everything first yourself. And
Hmm.
so, you know, both with my last company and now this company, I've done the same thing. And so that kind of feeds into this. You know, you wear a lot of hats, especially in the beginning while you're starting a business, because you're figuring things out, right? You have to figure out how should our operations work, and like what types of marketing things work and don't work. And then once you get a good understanding of what works and what doesn't work, then it's time to start, layering on a little bit of systemization over it so that it'll run itself. But yeah, so I do try to apply those types of thinking to the business for sure.
And also, I think that's so important because even with your company, with your love of handwriting and that authentic feel to it, you don't want to turn something you're passionate about into a job.
Exactly. Right.
And
Exactly.
that's his other big message, right? Like now you've
Yep.
gotten really amazing at making pies, and
Right.
now after a while, now you don't even like doing that because you've got all these other things that or
Exactly. Yeah.
you're managing the business side like a pie crafts person.
Right. Right. Yeah. So basically, yeah, his point is there's a difference between having a job and running a business, right? If you
Right.
just want a job, you can just go out and get a job. But if you're running a business should basically run without you. So
Right.
that's kind of like the huge difference.
Great point. What's a hobby you enjoy that most people may be surprised about?
So I'm a competitive sailor. So I went to school at Boston University, and I sailed for 4 years on their varsity sailing team there.
Hmm.
And I still try to compete as much as possible. COVID's made it a little bit difficult in the past couple months, especially over the summer. But that's something that's near and dear to me that I love to do. A lot of the friends that I still keep in touch with to this day, I made in some way, shape, or form through sailing or traveling to compete um, in a regatta somewhere. So that's something that's very near and dear to my heart.
Okay. Last year I went to Nantucket for vacation and we went
Oh, very
through the
nice.
JFK Museum with all the pictures of him and his sailboat on Nantucket, and it looked very nice. You're out freedom. You're not worrying about anything.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, Nantucket's an awesome place.
Now, where can people go to find out more information about you and your company?
Yeah, so the easiest thing is to just hit our website, which is ignitepost.com. And in fact, if you want to have one of our robots write you out a handwritten note and send it to you, I made a nice form that you can fill out at ignitepost.com/podcast. And if you want to try the service, just write in the notes that you heard me on this podcast, and we'll load you up with an account with 50 free letters to send to anyone you want.
That's great. What's one action step our listeners can take to help them lead a more fulfilling life?
I think honestly, goal setting is one of the biggest things that has been instrumental for me in my life. Typically, if you don't set goals and you don't have very difficult to find a direction if you don't have a goals, right? Um, or what's the saying? If you don't have goals, like you'll definitely get to your destination, or something like that. Um, but yeah, so I think goal setting is probably the biggest recommendation I can make, both long term and short term. And it's the number one thing that I think contributes to kind of feeling that sense of fulfillment, being able to strive out to do something, and then no matter how much, whether it's a lot or a little progress you're making, at least you're making progress towards something that you want to do.
Well, from your demeanor, Arian, you seem like you have that figured out of how to be happy and passionate, and you've got your business running, and it seems like you're doing it all.
Well, it's definitely been fun. I definitely do not have everything figured out, but I at least have some things that provide enough structure and enough unstructure that it kind of keeps me sane and balanced.
Wow. Well, the bigger question, will the Boston Celtics win the NBA title?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. That's right. You're here at the All the Hats We Wear podcast. I'm your host, time management coach and productivity expert Scott Snow. This show will teach you, the entrepreneur, the time management skills you need to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled. This is episode number 40. We have an awesome guest today, Arian Radmand. Arian Radmand is the CEO and founder of IgnitePost.com, a handwritten mail service that enables businesses to develop deeper relationships with customers and prospects. IgnitePost does this by combining software and robotics to allow businesses to send real pen and ink letters that are indistinguishable from human handwriting. We believe authentic, personalized communication is the key to more sales and happier customers. Prior to IgnitePost, Arian was co-founder of Coach Up, Inc. Coach Up is the nation's leading sports coaching company. We raised $15 million in venture capital, built the category-leading brand, were fortunate enough to partner with two-time NBA champion and MVP Stephen Curry as our lead spokesman, and made the Inc. 5000 list in 2018. For this, Arian was a Forbes 30 Under 30 award winner in 2015. You're meant to do great things. If you want to be an innovator and visionary, you have to manage your busy life like one. The All the Hats We Wear planner is the planner for the future. I want to give you a free month of the planner to try out for yourself. Nothing will slip through the cracks anymore. When you use the All the Hats We Wear planner, you'll have everything you need at your fingertips. All of your goals, a vision statement, a list of daily habits, and a checklist to track your progress. Key information for the small and large projects on your plate. Daily sheets to clarify your top outcomes for each day. A week at a glance section to plan for the coming weeks, and much more. The All the Hats We Wear planner will be your roadmap to a more joyful, productive, and fulfilling life. To claim your free month so you can see for yourself how it will streamline your busy life, visit allthehatswewear.com.